Being the appointed hour of 5:30, I call this meeting to order for the New Bern Historic Preservation Commission. Could we have a roll call?
Certainly. Let's see. Ruth Cox,
Present?
Tripp Fury. Here. Christian Evans,
Here.
George Brake,
Here.
Joe Klotz,
Here.
Peggy Broadway,
Here.
James Bisbee.
Here.
Ellen Sheridan is excused, and James Woods, I have not heard from. Has anyone else? No. Okay.
I have not.
Madam Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Call for a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. So I'm going to give an introduction to our meeting tonight. The Historic Preservation Commission is a public commission appointed by the City of New Bern's Board of Aldermen. It is responsible for preserving and safeguarding New Bern's locally designated historic districts, downtown and Riverside, based upon U.S. Department of Interior standards, state standards, city ordinances, and New Bern's historic guidelines. Two of the major tasks of the HPC include approving applications for a certificate of appropriateness and preventing demolition of historic structures due to neglect. The HPC holds a quasi-judicial hearing on an application for a certificate of appropriateness. The Commission hears sworn testimony and evidence provided by the applicant, by parties who received notice of the hearing, and by others who can justify that they have relevant evidence and are directly affected by the application. The Commission cannot consider comments based on personal likes or dislikes, hearsay, or personal opinion that cannot be directly related to specific historic guidelines. Likewise, Commissioners shall refrain from stating personal opinions, personal likes or dislikes, or hearsay during a hearing. The Commission's decisions on an application is based solely on testimony and evidence presented at a hearing that directly relates to the historic guidelines. What we will do now in terms of swearing in presenters is that we will do that one case at a time due to our circumstances of having to be here in this room, related also to the virus issue of having everybody here together. So we're letting people stay out in the entryway, separated apart, and we will bring them in one at a time for each review, and we will swear them in now. Here's a summary of how we will generally proceed. The HPC administrator provides an overview of the application. The applicant or their representative presents the application. Proponents and opponents who received notice of the hearing can present evidence. Rebuttal is allowed by the applicant and by proponents and opponents who receive notice. Others who can justify that they have relevant information and will be directly affected can present evidence. The HPC administrator presents the staff's findings and their recommendations. The applicant and their representative has an opportunity to make final comments on this application. Commissioners discuss the evidence and may ask for clarification from the applicant or their presenters. The chairman calls for a motion to approve or deny the application with stated findings of fact. The motion is discussed by the commission. The chairman calls for a vote on the motion by the commission. A COA can be approved with conditions, or denied. So let us go to the first item on our agenda.
So our first item is 311 Bern Street.
Okay. So if you'll find 311 Bern Street out there.
Okay. Do we have anyone, hello? Do we have anyone out there for 311 Bern Street? 311 Bern Street? We did, one person did call on no big deal. Okay. The applicant called me earlier today and said she could not attend but was trying to get her authorized representative to come. Apparently no one is outside for this item. So we will have to continue this item once again in order to continue it to the next meeting.
Okay, and to continue an item, we have to have a motion to do that,
So
That is
moved.
correct.
okay?
The motion has to include the date,
The
time, and the place, and also the reason for the continuance.
Do we know the next place, where we're going to be meeting?
It'll be again in this room.
And would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, what's the date?
The date will be
April,
21st is the third
that's
Wednesday.
correct.
I move that we continue the application for 311 Bern Street to April 21st for the reason that the individual was unavailable to attend tonight.
And the meeting will be,
And the meeting will be the Development Services
and
Right.
at,
at 5:30 p.m.
Very good. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
all those in favor say aye.
Oh, wait, you need a second?
Oh, second. Okay. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, hearing none, it will be continued.
Okay. Okay,
Who you need, 211?
yes.
So 211 Johnson Street.
311. I'm sorry, I was like that.
And Madam Chair, I need to excuse myself, I have a property adjoining this.
Wait 1 second.
The very one before you sit
Okay, so now, are you the only person here for this project? Will they be speaking?
Not unless someone has questions for us, I'd be happy to.
Well,
It's too long for
Unless it's a problem for you, we need to swear in anybody who will speak.
Sure.
Okay, so whoever will speak on this, have to come in the room, have to be on the camera.
Charles, if you go.
You will in a minute.
Oh,
You won't be speaking? Okay.
I
All
don't
right,
know.
just the two of you. Hand up. Do you swear to tell the truth, the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Okay, now go ahead and sign on that sheet, please. And you may be seated here as well. Sorry, it sounds like I'm yelling, but that's because we only have a tiny microphone in the back.
Where do you want us?
Right there.
Are you ready for me to excuse now?
Oh, well, just a minute. He's got to get these people sworn in.
You can use that chair there if you'd like, as well, and bring a chair around, in from outside if you'd like.
Right here.
Oh, here, Robbie's got it.
Okay.
Okay, so this is 211 Johnson Street. Can we have an overview, sir?
1 second. We can go ahead and do the.
You wanna go ahead and let her go?
excuse- Yeah,
Okay.
let's do that while I call it the
Okay, all right.
information.
So we have one conflict of interest here. So do we have a motion to have our comrades sit this out?
So moved.
Then we
Second.
have a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Peggy, we will let you go sit out in the waiting area out there.
Oh,
So
okay.
who was
okay.
who was the motion?
I did.
He did?
Christian? And the second?
Jim.
Jim was the second.
Madam Chair, am I not allowed to hear what transpires?
Oh, yes. Yes. You may sit in the audience with the rest.
Okay,
If you're going to speak, we'll have to swear you in.
okay.
All right, and
Do we have any other members who have a conflict of interest or any issues on the application? Okay, we have none.
Okay. So let's get the first application here. And here we go. This is now the application for 211 Johnson Street. The applicant is C.R. Francis Architecture, PA, and the owners are Mr. and Ms. Douglas Townsend. And they have an extensive description of the work, extensive description of the number of guidelines that apply. Oops. And also a description of the various materials. On the second sheet, they've checked off the appropriate boxes and signature and date. So we're talking about this particular house on Johnson Street. You may all recognize it, if not live next to it or behind it. Where does the cursor go? All of the entire proposal is all behind this structure. It does not affect the front facade of the primary AVC in any way. This is an aerial view of the site. So we were just out here on the street looking at the front of the house. The house has an L shape to it, and then there's a gap and then a garage. And the property continues past the garage with a slight jog in it as well. And we'll see also later that there is an access easement that goes out across the neighboring property to the rear out to Change Street. Here's a photograph of the current photograph of the rear of the house. So almost all the work will be happening in this area. So you're now to familiarize with this. So primarily it's the original two-story structure in the background here with an existing screened porch here. And then off to the left, hard to see, being oblique, there's a 1950s addition. We'll see that in plan view much more clearly. And then the at the same time as the original structure, 1800, 1805 or so, there was also a separate accessory building, we call them now. It was a kitchen, and that's this building here with this chimney, this dark colored chimney here. Then there's a gap that goes off picture here, which we'll talk about too. To note is there are some small trees here, many shrubs, and this tree here as well. Some shrubs in the back as well, and this narrow walkway at the moment. So, now we're going to have to downsize this.
So you need to shrink it.
Yeah. All right, let's go. There we go. So this gives you that plan view of the entire site. So this dark gray area is the original 1800, 1805 building house. Just this rectangle here with a brick fireplace and chimney on one end and a brick fireplace and chimney on the other end. Then this gray area here, L-shaped gray area, is a 1950 addition. And then this dark gray area is that original, also approximately 1800, 1805, maybe mid-1800s, detached kitchen with its fireplace and chimney that I pointed out in the photograph being that dark colored chimney. Currently there's a gap here, but here the proposal for tonight is to add this addition between that historic kitchen and the existing garage, which was built around 1980. In addition to all that, the screened-in porch, which was originally constructed in the 1950s, represented by this gray area, is to be expanded under this roof here in this proposal tonight. And then also the walkway along the side of the house will be covered here in this area with this white roof, shown as a white roof here. And as I mentioned, the addition here, there is also a small little roof overhanging an entryway on this side of the house as well. The entire backyard, a large portion of the backyard will now be terraced with hardscaping. And the transition from the level of the floor inside the house to the level of the ground outside will be made by a series of steps of various widths and forms, somewhat shown here. We'll see better in the plan, in the actual plan view. And then there's also the addition of a pool in this location here, and a fence which will start, I believe, all the way at the beginning of the front of the house, along the entire edge of the property, a gate here. Along the entire edge of the property, follow the contours of the property line, a gate opening at the access easement, and then continue around back to the side rear of the garage. This drawing also does show more clearly the access easement out to Change Street. So vehicular access comes in this back of the property, and none at all through the front or the side of the house. And I did have clarified, although shown here on the left as the similar material as the terrace, this is all existing material to remain on this side. The gray area here is all new material. And is it new material out here along this side of the house in front of the gate as well, or is that existing?
I think there's an existing walkway now. We'll probably redo it just to get the levels correct.
Okay. So, all right. So, are there any questions about that overall understanding of the project from a site view perspective? Okay. And I'm asking because I know last time there was a lot of confusion. Okay, so now this is the first floor plan, and to note, this rectangle up here at the top is the original 1800 house with the two fireplaces here on each end. The 1950s addition was then added behind that down to, let's say, the bottom of this page right here at the moment, which then attached to the original kitchen. So this 1950s addition included the existing screened-in porch, which I'm circling here, and then the rest of the building here, which will be remodeled on the interior. The screened-in porch, the exterior wall of that screened-in porch will be removed at this point in order to expand the screened-in porch out farther to this point down here. And they will be adding a new chimney and fireplace at this end of the screened-in porch. We'll see that also in the side elevations. So the new addition along this wall, they'll be removing or reconfiguring this entire wall so that they will have bifold type glass doors along this entire section from this support column here all the way down to the end here in order to open the entire thing up entirely. There's also two swinging doors down here at this end. And then the walkway I mentioned earlier, that was the white area in the site plan view. The edge of that follows this line, which is where we now have 4 pairs of columns. First one right at the screened-in porch. Next one here along the support beam here, and then 2 more here. Then the roof actually curves around instead of continuing straight for a 90-degree angle. Let's see. The entrance on this side has 2 steps, and then I mentioned that overhanging, short overhanging roof on this left side. The former historic kitchen area will now be a bedroom, and it has a fireplace still to remain. So on the exterior, that building remains the same. Then the portion that is a gap currently between the historic kitchen and the garage will be infilled with this addition connecting the two, the historic kitchen and the garage. There will be no walk-through to the garage, no or window or penetration of any sort. And this creates for this bedroom a large dressing and bathroom area. So that's the house plan. Then you can see some of the terracing, the lines for the terracing to make the transition from the house floor down to ground level. And then the pool here on the right and the fence along the side. They're also showing some new landscaping around the existing or the historic kitchen area and the new addition. All right. Second floor. Interior is unimportant to us, but this does show then the roofs of the one-story pieces of the house. So this now shows the new roofing for the screened-in porch extension, the flat roof over the walkway, the existing roof of the one-story 1950s addition, the roof over the historic kitchen, and you can see this is then the fireplace and chimney, and then the roof of the new addition on the back, where it's sloping, has a ridge down the middle and sloping to either side. Okay, so the elevations. So looking from the neighbor's yard to the side, so Johnson Street is here on the right-hand side. So the historic house is a 2-story piece right here with the chimney on this side. And you can see an idea of what the fencing will be for this project. The existing screened-in porch is right here, mostly, I guess. And then the new chimney and fireplace is this one here. So whereas the historic chimneys and fireplaces were constructed of brick, in this case they are going to be made from rubble stone.
We're going to try to find ballast.
Or ballast stone, sorry. And then this portion here, this 2-story portion with the roof, is the 1950s addition. So that none of that is new. You can see poking out behind this chimney here is the new addition or the new extension of the screened-in porch on this side. Behind that is the bifold doors in the background and the covered walkway above it in front, creating this shadow. This is the historic kitchen with the chimney. And then on the left is the new addition extending over to the existing garage. You can see the sloping roof of the garage here. So it makes a connection between these two sloping roofs. This elevation shows that there's a window here on this end and a window here on this end and a solid wall in between. The detail of this projection here is the same as the detail that goes across for the covered walkway. And this also includes and shows the gutters and downspouts. There's two downspouts there and 2 downspouts here. All right. Oh, and you can see the terracing of the steps terracing down to ground level. And there's a small little brick planter wall here as well. Okay. So now pretend we take a slice through the 1950s addition, right where the back door is, or that side door off to the neighbor off to the side, and through the terracing all the way across to the fence on the east side. So again, the interior unimportant to us, but you can see the doorway out to the terrace from the screened-in porch here, and this is the screening of that expanded screened-in porch. And again, the detail across the top being the same as the walkway. In the background here, we see again now the side view of the new chimney, and then the historic chimney in the background, and same on this side. And this portion up here is from the 1950s addition, and as well as I believe this portion up to that horizontal line is also a portion of the 1950s addition, and above there is the original, or the not original, but the historic roof, not roofing, in the background. This here is a gate for the fence.
That's what I was going to say.
Oh, okay. Okay, so now flip around to the other side, exactly. So now we have Johnson Street here on the left, and the historic house here with its chimney, the 1950s two-story addition, and the 1950s one-story addition here, the historic kitchen, the new addition, and the garage. And the only things that are changing on this elevation are this entryway here has a cantilevered roof hanging out to shelter this doorway. And then the new addition itself again has the two windows again with the solid wall and the downspouts as well. Wasn't clear to me is the door and the side window this is the door and the side window, are those new?
Those are new.
Okay.
And the reason that they're new is because the floor is actually approximately 20 inches lower today than it's going to be.
So it'll be elevated about 20 inches or so. Okay. And that elevation is in order to make the floor the same throughout the entire, all of those additions.
All the first floor is going to be the same height. Oops.
All right. So they've provided a rendering, several renderings. This one shows the walkway from the main street back to that gate that we were talking about. And here's the new chimney. The old chimney here, first on the right, and then the new chimney, and then the gate, and the fencing.
Matt, the siding that's between the two chimneys right there.
Oh yes, the
is
slide
on-
there.
It's on they refer to it as, in Peter's book as a pent closet addition.
Oh, that's right. Right. So, yes, historic, this, and then you see there's some plants behind it. So there's a portion of the house that looks like it has a small little addition on it. That's historically always been there. So now we have two views. Let's look at one at a time here. So the backyard, the new backyard, similar to the angle we saw before. And you can pretty much see all the features we were talking about. This is the expanded screen-in porch, the covered walkway, the historic kitchen, and then the new addition here. So the new addition is to have the same siding as all of the rest of the all of the rest of the house as well. Okay, we can come back to any of these if you have any questions at some point. Oh, so and I guess I may have missed one. Yes, there we go. And you left out a gap in the fence just so that you can see what was behind it. This fence would continue across. It's currently, what did you say, 3 feet?
3 feet, and then it transitions up to 6.
Up to 6 feet, yeah. Okay, so we'll just be repeating myself, I think, for all of that. So we'll see it in a second in the historic description. When we get to the recommendation, it refers to beaded weatherboard. So I wasn't quite sure what that was, so I looked it up and found out that it's basically a wood siding, a wedge-shaped siding, and it has a detail at the bottom of every board that they call a bead, because it's not a quarter round, it's a full round, 180-degree round cut. Essentially, looks like this here on the right. And this would be one of the boards where you can see it here, but in section you see it most clearly. So the reason this was done at the time was it helped avoid some of the splintering that would happen along that corner, that kind of important corner of every board. It was also with the with this kind of shape, though, it was a little bit fancier than just a straight old curve it around the bottom. Okay, and then we have also the zoning and inspections report where it meets the zoning code and will, of course, require a building permit. So then I'm ready whenever you are for the recommendations.
Okay. So does the applicant have anything else that they would like to say at this time?
To tell you the truth, Matt did such a good job, I'm not sure that it would help for me to speak too much about it, unless you've got particular questions.
Well, our questions will come later. Okay, so are there anybody that I could see out here, are there any notified proponents of this project that want to speak?
We're next door.
Okay, have you been sworn in?
We don't need to speak, but we're here,
Okay.
supporting.
Well, and that's for testimony. You don't want to say anything.
No.
Okay. All right. Is there anybody that wants to give testimony from notified opponents of this? Seeing none.
Wait.
We have one?
Peggy.
Okay.
I don't consider myself an opponent, I just had some questions for clarification.
Okay, wait, before you speak, you'll have to be sworn in.
Okay.
Stand right there. Do you swear to tell the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Okay, and then I guess I'll get you the paper to sign. One, please, thank you.
Because she got notification, I guess it's okay. I don't think it's.
Okay.
You would think that. Circumstances.
Okay, thank you.
So she has standard.
Okay, so what testimony do you want to give?
Just had some questions.
Madam Chair,
Hi, Doug.
before she
Good to see you.
begins,
Hold on a
Nice to see
second.
you.
Yes?
just as a point of clarification, was she notified by mail?
Yes.
Yes.
Ready?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, first of all, do you know if there are any covenants in the house, you know, that you can't change the inside of the rooms or anything?
It's not under preservation.
It's not?
It's not.
Okay, good. Okay, now, one
Oh,
of
wait.
the,
Sorry.
Only someone, I guess.
Yeah, so you all can't respond, okay?
All right.
So you can't answer questions.
Unless you want to swear in.
Unless you want to be
I'll
sworn in.
swear.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to answer that question.
Yeah. Yes,
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
See, it doesn't hurt to
No.
get sworn in.
You are being recorded.
Okay, and then we'll need to know who you are when you do respond.
I'm Peggy Broadway, and
Yep.
I share the back of the property. And by the way, they're my fifth person to live there since I have.
Okay.
One correction for you, Matt, that garage was added on in the 2000s, not
Okay.
80s. Had 5 folks come in. They're all good neighbors. One of the things I needed to ask was, since the old kitchen is lower, from what I see here, you're not planning to raise the old kitchen, is that correct?
We're just planning on raising the floor.
Raising the floor?
Yes,
Inside.
raising the floor inside.
How high? Will it be the same elevation?
Same elevation as the rest of the
So
house.
if you raise the floor, how about the height of the building?
We're leaving it as it is.
It's not that tall.
It's tall enough that we'll be able to get a door through.
Get a what?
A door.
Yeah.
Get a door through.
Oh, okay. But you're going to make it into a bedroom.
It will be a master bedroom suite.
Will it have a regular regular ceiling?
It has a cathedral ceiling in it now.
Oh, okay. Good. That's good to know. Okay. The next big question was, when you put in the pool over on the side, that's going to go right next to the
To the fence.
boundary. Okay. And it looks like you're going to take out 2 trees between the current house and the garage, kitchen. And you're going to take out the palm trees on the east side of the property and 1 very large deciduous tree.
So whatever trees are in the way of putting in the pool,
Okay. Where are you going to replace them?
we haven't decided yet.
What?
We have not decided yet.
And brighten us up on that, please, Matt. When you take out a tree, we like to have it replaced, right?
Correct.
That's correct.
And a tree should be,
You'll have to tell us that.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
So,
You'll have to
I know
tell us.
there are 2, crepe myrtles between the kitchen, the current kitchen, and the old kitchen. And then the palm trees are on the right. And then it looks like the pool is going to go roughly to where one of the palm tree, with the big deciduous tree is.
That's right, yeah, and I think I can shed a little light on that.
Good.
Can you just identify your name?
Oh, sorry, Doug Townsend. And could you go to one of the, I think it was one of Charles's drawings, that just shows maybe the pool from the back or whatever.
One of the renderings?
Yeah, one of Charles's renderings, yeah. Okay, that one. Is it okay if I step up and just point?
Yes, please.
Sorry. We are, the plan that we have been talking with Tessa Reagan about is to plant 3, she's talking about some kind of palm trees, but 3 palm trees coming up here at the end so that when you look out this way, there are 3 large palm trees that would come up. And then some second level of vegetation, so it's kind of a stacked look that all looks back this way. So in the plan right now, what she's kind of preliminary drawn up would be 3 palm trees.
Okay. And you have enough property beyond the pool before you get to the property line on the south that you could put a larger tree if you need to, replace the large tree.
Sure.
I think so, yes. I sent talk with, so I'm lower tips of my skis, but I think there is property back between
Oh, yes.
your line and,
Oh, yes.
yeah, and
Yeah.
we're not planning on touching that.
Right. Okay, so that takes care of the trees. And the fencing, it looks like it's going to be picket.
It's board fence, 3.5 inches wide, with space, and then in that space on the other side of the horizontal railings would be another picket. So you get a view of about this much between the pickets.
That's good. That'll provide privacy.
Well, yeah, we're trying to get it so we've got privacy and so that we take care of any liability with the pool.
Excellent. And Doug, we do now have, I hope they gave you a control for the fence, the gate that's there.
The one that's currently there, yes ma'am, I
Yes.
did, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So if you put another fence there, I know you have dogs, so you need a fence. So if you put another fence there, do you want a control for it? In other words, I guess my question is, what happens to the current fence with them?
Well, I was planning to come talk to you about that one at some point because it's so narrow.
Yes.
Getting through that, but unless you want it for protection or
I
whatever,
have
we're
no
fine.
objections to taking out the controls.
Oh, you don't? Okay, because it's really skinny getting through there.
Yes.
So that was what I was going to come talk to you about.
That was no problem. And the neighbors, Victoria and Jack, when they lived there, they put the control fence in. So if you would not want it there, I'd appreciate it if you would take it out.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, well, that was our plan. Yep.
That's fine.
Or after, your
Okay.
approval.
Let's see. I believe that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So do we have any testimony from any notified opponents? Seeing none. Does the applicant want to say anything else about what was questioned? Okay. So those are two rebuttals we don't have, okay? So do we have comments from anyone with relevant evidence and who has standing? Seeing no one, okay? So sir, if you would like to tell us what your findings are.
Certainly. So, this is the application for 211 Johnson Street. The applicants are Mr. and Ms. Douglas Townsend and C.R. Francis Architecture, PA. 211 Johnson Street, the project is to include constructing a screened extension to the rear screened porch, a new fireplace and chimney on the side of the screened porch, revisions to the east wall of the existing one-story addition, revisions to the rear terrace, a terrace roof, a one-story addition, a pool, and fencing. And when this was written, I did not know there was also the additional cantilevered roof on the west side. So we'll have to add that, all in the secondary and tertiary AVCs. So the National Register inventory from 2003, the information. Historic property name is the Mitchell Stevenson House, built circa 1800 to 1805 and remodeled way back in 1830 and 1840. The status is it's a contributing structure. And the brief description is it's 2 stories, 4 bays wide, exterior end chimneys, gable end roof, and attic dormers. The Sandbeck description from 1988, quote, Joshua Mitchell, a respected New Bern brick mason, had this house constructed. Mitchell was described as a master workman who made many of the brick houses and chimneys erected in town. Flanking the house are 2 fine Flemish bond, single paved shoulder chimneys, very likely built by Joshua Mitchell himself. The entire house is covered with beaded weatherboarding. The large 2-story rear L was added during the 20th century, connecting the house to its original but much altered kitchen. An early 19th century 2-story porch shelters the rear elevation. And then I already went over the beaded weatherboarding handout. Staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. Fences and garden walls, 2.5.1 through 2.5.3. Design principles, 3.1.1, 3.1.2, and 3.1.4. Modifications, 3.2.1 through 3.2.3. Additions, 3.3.1 through 3.3.3. Foundations, 4.1.3. Walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.1 and 4.2.4. Roofs, 4.5.1. Decks and patios, 4.6.1, 4.6.4. Masonry, 5.1.1, 5.1.2. Wood, 5.2.1, 5.2.2. Metal, 5.3.1. Paint, 5.4.1 through 5.4.4. And statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: the structure is a contributing resource in the tight weave development pattern. The project is within the secondary and tertiary AVCs. 3, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 4, the zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 5, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this application to include constructing a screened extension to the rear screen porch, a new fireplace and chimney on the side of the screen porch, revisions to the east wall of the existing 1-story addition, revisions to the rear terrace, a terrace roof, a 1-story addition, a pool, fencing, and a cantilevered roof over the new entrance on the west side,
Call it rear entrance on the west side.
all in the secondary and tertiary AVCs.
Okay. Do you have anybody who wants to give testimony from any state, city, or government body? Seeing none. Does the applicant got any other comments you would like to make at this time? No. Okay, so I call for discussion among our members. What questions do you have? What comments do you have at this point?
Madam Chair, I do have a couple of questions to direct it to the landscaping of the house, of the backyard. With your hardscaping, I understand that. And if you would, Charles, just verify for me that the trees that are coming down, are they dead trees? Is there a special stipulation as far as the tree is healthy, that it can come down even though for landscaping purposes and for creating this addition to the house?
You have to answer that.
Yes, so trees that are in the way of construction would, well, first of all, it's recommended that construction be designed to avoid trees. Secondly is when that's not practical or possible, then they can be part of the application to remove the trees. And thirdly, we do require replacements of trees removed. So eventually, the trees would be about the same size as what was removed. Well, I guess maybe fourthly is they, before they proceed with landscaping, which is quite a few months away, they will have to also submit a landscaping plan for separate COA.
Okay.
And we have no problem doing any of that.
Okay, thank you.
So you would need to identify on the property what trees you're taking down, where they are on the property, and where you're going to plant the replacement tree on the property. And you can get with Matt about that, and the same thing about like the palms that you're going to take down. And then again, whatever you're going to plant, you'll have to get with him about that.
That's fine.
Okay?
Thanks, Charles.
Sure, no
Okay.
problem.
Any other questions that anybody has? Okay, at this point, Peggy. You have something?
Well, no, I was going to say some nice things.
Okay.
You'll need to speak up a lot more. Our microphone is way back there.
But if you could take us back to the elevation along the long axis of the house, the drawing, technical drawing.
Should be two more.
Yeah, the interior side, yeah. And so, Charles, I just wanted to say I appreciate the attention to the scale of the chimneys and how they kind of step down in concert with the massing. Also, I thought a pretty good job was done of tying together a bunch of different pieces of massing, whether it be historic fabric or new addition, by using the horizontal element of the porch, and then the double colonnade or double column that kind of sets up a rhythm. And in terms of our guidelines, we like to see that kind of articulation and fenestration. And then also all the window openings and the light arrangements or framing arrangements when it comes to the screen porch. All those openings have vertical orientation, which also is in accordance with one of our guidelines. So nicely done. I need to be invited to come see what the pool's like when it's built. Sorry, that's correct. I need to, speaking of retracting a comment, I better retract that statement.
Yes, you bet.
Okay, any other members have a comment or question? Anybody else? So I have a question about the garage, because the garage is presently there, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and this in-building that you have, does it butt up to this garage? Do they use the same wall? Is there a space between this, your new end part here and the garage?
It butts up to the wall.
Do we have a picture? But there's no entrance from the garage into the house.
That's correct.
By the way, there's not a soaking tub inside the wall there. I think that-
Did I have that label on that?
Yeah,
Good, good to know.
that's the tub up there. Anyway,
So
You
is
can
this
tell
bottom
things been
line?
moved around.
No, you're inside that building up there.
yes. So you were asking about what the existing wall of the garage,
Was
which
that
ends
dark
where my
correct?
little cursor is going across here. They're going to be building a new wall on the exterior surface, current exterior surface of the garage.
So what you're calling the garage, you're not gonna put cars in?
It's already a car garage.
Okay.
It's got,
So the
it's got-
garage is down here. See?
Yeah. It's a 3-bay garage.
Yeah, okay, wait, let's go back to the site plan. So we-
Go back.
Okay, so that wall we were just pointing to is right here,
Yeah.
okay? And this is the rest of the garage. Go ahead.
And running along this wall through here are 3 garage doors.
All right. So, but in the new place, the new part that you're gonna build there to the left, there's no way to get from that into your garage?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Do any other members have any other questions they want to ask? Okay. All right. Can I call for a motion?
Madam Chair, I move find the application for 211 Johnson Street for a certificate of appropriateness is not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance sections 15.411 to 15.429 and New Bern Historic District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Fences and garden walls 2.5.1, 2, and 3. Design principles 3.1, 2, and 4. Modifications 3.2, 1, 2, and 3. Additions 3.3, 1, 2, and 3. Foundations 4.13. Walls, trim, and ornamentation 4.2.1 and 4. Roofs 4.5.1. Decks and patios 4.6.1 and 4. Guidelines on masonry 5.1 and 2. Wood 5.2.1 and 2. Metals 5.3.1. Paint 5.4.1, 2, 3, and 4. For the following statements of reasons, structure is contributing resource in the tight weave development pattern. The projects within the secondary and tertiary AVCs. Proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. The zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed the project and commented accordingly. The project's not incongruous with the guidelines.
Any other questions anybody's got at this point? Okay.
I'll second that.
A second? Okay.
I would ask that we put a condition, if the motion maker will accept that a landscape plan will be submitted at the point in time it's appropriate.
I do.
Also about what trees to include.
Includes the trees.
Yeah, to include what trees are taken down and being replaced. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed, hearing none, the motion passed. Can I have a motion to issue a COA?
So moved.
Is there a second? We have a second. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed, hearing none, the motion passed. So you can have your COA with the stipulations about all of your outside garden work.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, well, thank you very much. You're very well presented. Thank you so much. There was a lot there, and you made it easy to understand.
Is this-
Thank you, Charles.
You have to invite us all to see it. I said, you'll have to invite us all to see it, because it looks very,
Absolutely,
very
yeah.
nice.
If you raise the floor, what happens to the fireplace hearth? You're gonna raise that too? Okay, good enough.
Maybe I'll call Leslie.
No problem.
Okay, do I have a motion for our comrade to be invited back into our
So moved.
carriage? Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, hearing none. Madam, you may come and rejoin.
And guys, before you do that,
What?
it's unfair that you let Sarah come in after the motion's made in the past and ask questions and you wouldn't let me do that. And my question was, and I was able to talk to them about it, if he raises the floor of the old kitchen, which will be a bedroom, what happens to the chimney hearth? So,
I hear your question, however, that's not under our purview.
I hear you.
Anyway,
So,
I didn't ask this question.
okay, all right. So we're now to 802 East Front Street. So you'll need to be sworn in. You
yes.
need to be sworn in and sign in.
I signed in.
You've already signed in?
Yep.
Okay, so you need to
Prepare
be
that.
sworn in.
Yep. Do you swear to tell the truth to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Okay. So sir, can you give us an overview of this application?
Certainly. So,
We were asking this one to be continued. Didn't you get that email?
what's
I'm
that?
sorry?
Lot 8? We were asking for it to be continued. The owner has changes.
Is this one lot 8?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then, go ahead.
So you're asking for a continuance?
Yes.
Yeah.
You need a motion
What,
now?
then what address is this?
802 East Front Street.
802 East
Okay.
Front Street.
Okay.
You want the motion?
Yes, can I have a motion?
Move that we continue the application for 802 East Front Street to the next meeting, which will be April 21st in this room at 5:30 p.m.
Okay. All right, do we have a,
And what was the reason?
for the reason that there are changes being made.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passed. So number D, 802 East Front Street will be continued.
So who made the second?
Okay?
Oh, this is gonna be easy.
All right. Well, that was quick.
Okay, so now we're on 307 Pollock Street is our next one.
That's correct. Not continuing that one.
Yep.
Before we get through all
What
that.
time is it? Oh, 6:30.
Oh, that's wonderful, let's keep it that way.
That's what I was thinking.
I told my wife to be home at 9.
Sooner than that, if you don't mind.
Who wants to go out for beer? So, all right, let's go back.
Don't be proud.
Okay, there we go. 307 Pollock Street. And the property owner is CDB Properties. And the applicant is Phil Architectural Design PLLC, Sarah Alphabach AIA. They provide a description here. They provide the guidelines here and a description of the materials. And then that is signed and dated. And, and at the end of this document, there is the authorization, owner's authorization for her to represent them. So, the drawings, these architects, always such big drawings. The first sheet, just basic overview, but I think we'll get a better view later. This is the photograph of the front facade. On the left here, it's the building sandwiched between these two taller buildings. It's actually currently used by the branch, or was until recently used by the branch furniture store as an expansion from their main store over into the space. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. On the back of the building, there is a one-story concrete block addition on the back of the two-story main structure. And that's actually the back of the larger building. And so that one is to be demolished. So here we see a demolition plan, not a construction plan first. So this is the space we're talking about here, that narrow space that was the expansion from the branches furniture space over here. They knocked out two big holes in the brick walls here to allow circulation into that expansion space, and also a third hole back here for other purposes, I guess. So they're looking at removing the middle panel of these three storefront panels here, and then in the back, all the way to the back behind the Branches Furniture Store building, they're going to be removing that one-story storage addition. So, in case you're wondering, the property lines are very weird back here. So, this is the entire plan for the whole thing, but our primary concern is just the front facade here, and then the new doorway out the back, exterior door. And so shown here is some information showing that instead of a flush facade across here, they're proposing to construct a recessed entry. And this is made of all the same materials that the rest of the facade is made of, except, of course, a new door. And then the floor area, which will now be exterior, is a new mosaic tile floor. So, this is a view of the existing building on that side. The new condition on the right, and the existing here on the left showing what's to be removed. Note is that the upper portion is not to be removed. And so just the bottom portion of this middle bay between the two metal columns will be removed and replaced with that recessed entryway. All right. And there is the owner's authorization. Here we have the zoning and inspections review. And here the zoning, it meets the zoning and it will require a building permit. And then we're ready with recommendations whenever you are.
Does anyone have a conflict of interest to do with this project? Does anyone have any issues on the application's completeness to do with this project? Seeing none. Is there anything else you'd like to say about this project? Seeing none. So are there any notified proponents? I don't see any. Are there any notified opponents? Don't see any. So there's nothing to do with rebuttal. Okay. Is there anyone with relevant evidence and has standing? Don't see anyone. So sir, we're back to you.
Okay.
We circled around.
Great. I'm gonna merge this bit. All right. So these are the recommendations for 307 Pollock Street. The applicants are CDB Properties and Go Architectural Design PLLC. At 307 Pollock Street, proposed to include replacing a section of the storefront with a new wood, glass, and floor tile. Wood, glass, and floor tile entrance in the primary AVC, plus demolish a one-story concrete block addition, cut a doorway into an existing masonry wall, and add a new metal door in the tertiary AVC. The National Register inventory information, historic property name is the Edward R. Stanley Building, built circa 1875. It is a contributing structure and described as brick, 2 stories brick, I don't know why that's in there twice, cast iron cornice above the storefront, paneled and corbelled cornice. The sandbuck description of 1988, the portion that is of any relevance. This 2-story commercial structure was built circa 1875 for Edward R. Stanley. Several noteworthy facade details have survived the various remodelings, including the paneled and corbelled cornice, and above the recent storefront infill, a 2 cast iron cornice identical to the cornices seen at the Stanley Hall. The Flemish bond brickwork is an interesting detail apparently revived by at least one local builder during this period, and can be seen on several other late 19th century commercial buildings in New Bern. The original height of the second-story window openings has been reduced to accommodate modern single-pane windows. That was all there was about the facade. So staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate for this application. Design principles 3.1.1, 2, and 4. Modifications 3.2.1 and 2. Walls, trim, and ornamentation 4.2.4. Entrances 4.4.1. 3. That's it. Accessibility and life safety 4.7.2. Masonry 5.1.1, 5.1.2. Wood 5.2.1 and 2. Metals 5.3.1, and with the note that the sidebar on page 5-2 includes the metal elements on the subject building to represent metal features to be preserved. So there we have in our own guidebook a photo of the facade that we're talking about. But they're talking about this metal piece up here, and that is not going to be touched. And then paint, 5.4.2 and 5.4.4. Statements of reason, based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the structure is a contributing resource in the dense fabric development pattern. 2, the project is within the primary AVC and the tertiary AVC. 3, the proposed design, components, and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 4, the existing rear addition proposed to be removed is not a contributing element. 5, the zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 6, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. Staff recommends the commission approve this application to include replacing a section of the storefront with a new wood, glass, and floor tile entrance in the primary AVC, plus demolish a 1-story concrete block addition, cut a doorway into an existing masonry wall, and add a new metal door in the tertiary AVC.
Okay, is there any evidence of testimony from any city, state, or government individual? Seeing none. Dan, do you have any other comments you would like to make? Hearing none. Members, it is up to us for discussion, questions that you might have at this point.
I only have one question, and that is, do you think it would be appropriate to add 6.4.1, which is a guideline that says we can't tell someone they cannot remove a non-contributing structure, demolish a non-contributing structure. And it's a guideline. So, and seeing as how what they want to take down is non-contributing.
Yeah. Okay. Can we add that?
Sure. I mean, it's up to you in the motion.
Okay. So when whoever makes the motion, then we can add that into the motion.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay. Seeing none, I call for a motion.
I move the application for certificate of appropriateness for 307 Pollock Street to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinances, Section 15-411 to 15-429, and New Bern Historic District Guidelines, based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact.
Jim, can you speak up just a little bit?
Okay.
Thank you.
Guidelines being design principles 3.1.1, 2, and 4. Modifications 3.2.1 and 2. Walls and trim 4.2.4. Entrances 4.4.1 and 3. Accessibility and life safety 4.7.2. Guidelines for masonry 4.1.1 and 4.1.2. Wood 4.2.1 and 2.
Those are 5.
5, excuse me, 5. Yeah. Metals 5.3.1, paint 5.4.2 and 4, and what was
Demolition 6.4.1.
demolition 6.4.1.
Okay.
Following statements of reason, structures a contributing resource in the dense fabric development pattern. Projects within the primary AVC and tertiary AVC. Proposed design, components, and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. The existing rear addition proposed to be removed is not a contributing element. Zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed the project and commented accordingly. The project's not in Congress with the guidelines.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second? Okay. Any other questions at this point? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. Hearing none, the motion passed. Can we have a motion to issue a COA?
So moved.
Do we have a second? George is the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. Hearing none, the motion will pass.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right.
So, Sarah, next time you'll probably be second on the agenda because the first project tonight was continued as well.
Okay, I'll probably come to design review
Okay.
with the updated drawings. They're not that different, but I mean, it's fun, we'll do it once.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, so let us go to old business. So one of the items that we have in old business has to do with our awards that we have talked about doing. And so one of the things that we need to do is to let your boss and other people in the city and the Board of Aldermen know that we are wanting to do this. So I had the information that we had presented before our little work group. And are there any other comments that you want to make on what we have presented?
And I also have them on the screen if we need to.
Okay.
When I reviewed them, I thought they were delightful. We'll start there.
Okay, all right. I'll take delightful. We'll take that. Okay.
The only thing that I would recommend that we change
Okay.
is that the name of the award should remain the same, and that the presenter should pass on from, for example, yourself to the next chair of the HPC, etc., assuming these awards continue in time.
Okay.
You're talking about the annual award or all of them?
All of them.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Right, and we need to come up with some names for the quarterly ones, and so I thought that I would consult with Sabrina about that because she's been around a whole long time in the city and represented the downtown area. For us to get some names that would be a person who would help with preservation. So I'm going to consult with her about getting some names for that. And I'll come up with some examples of these two things that we need to come up with examples with. And those were the only items that we needed to add to this.
And Ruth, along that line, some of us are aware of some people. For example, a gentleman by the name of John Young, I think most of you know him. He has modified and redone 3 houses that I know of in New Bern, and especially the one on East Front Street, that the one the 2 brothers lived in, built it years and years ago. It's gray with maroon windows around, and it was used for years as a rental place. It was awful. It had blankets, red blankets hanging up in the windows. He has totally redone that structure. And he redid the structure on Craven Street, the corner of Craven and New Street. He redid that one, and he redid the one across the street. So we have some citizens that really do deserve this honor.
All right, so John Young is one name. Okay. So I'll look into those, and then I will give you some information on what I've come up with for the quarterly names, and then you can give me your comments back from that. But I'll be sending out some information to you.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay? Thanks. Good. Okay?
I have a suggestion. You were asking examples for adaptive reuse.
Uh-huh.
One is the Fireman's Museum.
That is a good one. You were right about that. Okay? Okay, so our little committee will get to work on, our group will get to work on that.
The community revitalization example, I think I gave it to you before, it's that cemetery Sure.
That little
The
cemetery
little
that they
cemetery there.
redid? Okay, that's the
Pollock.
cemetery on Queen Street,
Queen
right?
Street, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good.
We can't really give him an award, but I don't know how many of you have noticed that Foster with the Parks and Rec has been taking up those iron things around the trees that go down the main
Yes.
street in town. And the trees were suffering because they were beginning to grow into the iron. And I was delighted to see them tearing those out this week.
Okay, good, okay. All righty, so general public comments. I'm not sure what you people out there are here for. Are you the general public with comments?
No.
What are they?
Yeah, we're here for 104 Johnson.
Oh, 104 Johnson, okay. Is there anyone else out there? Just the two of you at the moment?
Is that another
Is that the
one
one
we
we
need to
can
do?
do?
That's coming up later. It's a part of the administrator's report.
Okay, all right. So we have no public comments for the time being. So under new business, we have the 818 East Front Street extension. What do we need to discuss about that?
So that is almost too bad she left already. That is a COA that was extended last year at this time. It is for the marina down at River Station. And being that it is now about to expire and they're just about to get their building permit, they are looking for, they've requested another extension. The second extension and any further extensions cannot be done by staff. They have to be done by the HPC. So we would need a motion and a vote to do that.
Okay, so
If you have any questions, they haven't changed anything in the plans. It's the same project as before. Although that said, a couple months after this extension, they were approved to do the concrete, what are they called, hog slabs?
Yes.
okay. So do we have a motion for an extension for the 818 East Front Street COA? This
So moved.
the marina. Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
There's a second.
Okay.
George is a second.
You need to indicate for how long, because you're allowed to make it whatever you want.
Oh, okay.
Will be extended for 1 year.
We'll say 1 year.
So it would be March of 2022
2022.
today or on the 20th?
It's a 1 year extension from the expiration of the previous one,
Okay.
but the previous one was off by 2 days. So it really would be extended until March 20th, because the original one was, right here it says, was approved on March 20th, 2019.
Okay.
So it would be March 20th.
2022.
22. Okay. That you
And
have
that would not be affected, now there's a for sale sign on it as of today, but that wouldn't affect what we do with it,
No.
okay?
So we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none.
Oh,
The
so
motion passed.
who made the motion?
Jim?
George was the second.
Thank you.
Okay. Historic District Guidelines, update proposal regarding house elevations. And I think we've got something to look at for that.
That's correct. There's a handout for you as well as on the screen. Currently, the guidelines for foundations, there are 4 of them. And the proposal by the Guidelines Update Work Group is to add the 2 that are at the bottom of the page, numbers 0.5 and 0.6. So let me make this bigger, why not? 0.5, 4.1.5 would say, when elevating a structure in flood zones, limit elevation to the minimum height required by ordinance. When elevating a structure that is not in a flood zone, limit elevation to about 2 feet above the current height. So, and then 4.1.6 is to minimize the visual impact of tall foundation walls by introducing a combination of landscaping, grading, and terrace retaining walls.
Okay, yep, that's what he's doing on the structure. Okay.
And Matt, your idea on that, those changes is so that we would not have an up and down effect?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, until recently, well, currently, we just have our own practice, our
Yeah.
own informal policy of making sure that people do not extend their houses or elevate their houses much higher than is required.
Yes.
First one. And then the second one is we've always requested that that be then visually mitigated or buffered with these various methods.
Yeah.
So it's always been our informal policy, and so now we're just formalizing it.
Okay.
Okay,
And to be noted is this is generally only going to apply to residential properties. Most commercial properties won't be attempting elevating the entire structure.
Okay, any other discussion about these? Do I have a motion?
One quick comment, I think we've got a tense issue in the wording of the
Okay.
first sentence of 4.1.5.
Okay. What do you
And we
think the
can-
tense is?
Well, I would suggest, and I'm going to read what's on the screen and then make some added language.
Okay.
When elevating a structure in a flood zone. And that way it'll agree with the second sentence as well.
Okay. Is that the only thing?
Yeah, that's the only
Okay.
thing I have.
And I have a question, and I don't know if there's a way to address this question, and it's not a big issue, but it's a question, the word about.
Oh,
I mean, how far away from 2 feet is still about?
Like that.
I know, it's,
Yeah.
that's why I said it's, you know, and I know what the intent is, and so I'm comfortable with what it says, but it's like, I don't want someone coming in and say, well, 4 is about 2.
or 3, or 2.5 from 3.
You know, well, even 2.5 I can probably live with if they have a justification for it. You know, I would have difficulty if they pass 3 and say it's about 2.
So if I may, I would volunteer that using the scientific method of significant digits, which is a method by which scientists determine if they should be looking at the beaker that has the lines for every milliliter, if they should be trying to determine if it's at 1.2 milliliters when the next line up is 2 milliliters. Their scientific method is they say, no, it's either 1 or it's 2, whichever one is closer. However, if it says 1.0 and then 1.1 and 1.2 or 1 point all the way up to 2.0, then you're allowed to make the distinction of the 0.1, 0.2. So in this case, since we do not say 2.0 feet, I would suggest that up to 2.5 feet is still 2 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
2
I was
foot
like-
9 inches is closer to 3 feet, and so it's actually 3
As
feet.
long as it doesn't create an issue. Because
Well, do we want to take,
the intent of what
Well,
it says, I think.
The
is
reason
fine.
it has to be,
I agree.
yeah, the reason it has to be
And I
about
understand, sorry.
is especially when you're dealing with bricks, things like bricks. You won't always be at exactly 2 feet without having to shave off bricks, right?
Right.
So, so that's why we end up with about 2 feet.
Okay.
And bricks are less than 6 inches, so it's not unreasonable.
How about eliminating the word about there, limit elevation to 2 feet plus or minus 6 inches?
plus or minus what?
That would give you a
6 inches.
a zone,
Mhm.
and it should be easy to work with. A full 1 foot variation.
Well, if you're gonna do that, you can say limit the elevation to 2.5 feet.
Right.
You could do that.
Okay.
The only concern I have with that, if you say 2.5, what if they want to go a few more inches above 2.5?
We're just creeping up.
No, we couldn't do that if we put, yeah, I agree with Ruth, if we put 2.5 feet then.
And the other thing that happens
That's
is construction inaccuracies, let's just put it that way. If the intent is to build it at 2 foot 3 inches and they end up building at 2 foot 7 inches, I don't think we're going to make them take an inch off or 3 inches off or whatever.
Well,
At
at some point.
those few inches
at some
is
point
not
we
important
would make
enough.
them take it off,
That's
or
right.
we would make them take it down. And while that's a very harsh approach, and I'm not recommending that we be harsh, there's a place where we say you've pushed far enough, stop.
Mhm.
And what I want is I want a guideline, or what will someday be called a standard, to be sufficiently clear so that we don't wind up in a position where we feel like we're being pushed.
Good example of that is the blue greenhouse across from Queens Point. He was told how high he could go, and then he put it up another several inches. More like 6 inches.
And that wasn't a mistake.
A mistake, yes.
No, it wasn't a mistake.
Okay, so what are we gonna do? We're gonna leave it about 2 feet and go from there? What are we gonna do?
Based on what Matt said, I'm comfortable with leaving it with the word about, as long as, we have a recording, we have a meeting that said this is the intent, and this group, because this group will change in its people across time, this group said, we want people to abide by the intent. And 2 is a good statement, and the word about doesn't really infringe on that statement.
Okay, so we're gonna,
Would the affected party have to come before us to tell us how many feet they were going up
yeah,
before they can do it? If they do, we could remind them that it's a matter of centimeters or whatever.
yeah, if they're gonna elevate, sure. Okay, so when elevating a structure in a flood zone, we're gonna change that wording to that. And then other than that, we all agree on these 2 items.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept these 2 items and the first item as amended?
So moved.
Second.
There's a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none, so that will pass.
And Ms. Who made the motion?
I did.
Okay. And the second was Jim?
Okay, so that's house elevation. Okay, number 7 is the administrator's report.
In the hall.
So A is on the,
Report on demolition by neglect complaint that was filed.
okay, 104 Johnson Street.
So, the people in the hallway are interested in this,
Okay,
so please come on in.
Madam Chair, they're not entitled to speak, but you can, in your discretion, allow them to do so.
Okay. Just to be clear, there's no debate here. This is just a report on the fact that a complaint was filed. So on February 25th, I received an official complaint for demolition by neglect on the 104 Johnson Street property. On the 1st of March, I investigated, took some photographs. Oh, and I guess I do have them here, I think. So I took 11 photographs. These are just 4 of them. This is just the general overall view of the house. So you all recognize which one we're talking about. A blow-up or an expanded close-up view of the entryway. And then the back of the house, where most of the exterior damage has occurred. And then the back of the house from another angle here, which includes then showing some of the retaining wall damage as well. So this was then presented to the demolition by neglect, prevention of demolition by neglect work group. And we had a discussion that included information presented by the minimum housing officer here at City. He pointed out that this has been an active case for them for quite some time, I believe, like at least over a year. And they've even issued the chief building inspector has issued a legal order for the house. Primarily based on a lot of conditions inside the house. And let's see, I'm also then required by our ordinance to send a letter to the owner if there are some conditions that that meet the demolition by neglect conditions. And so I did send that letter. They did receive it and signed it, the certified letter receipt, and I did receive that back.
So we know they got it.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm also required to send a letter to the complainant, giving them the status of the case. So this is the letter that I sent to the owners on March. Actually, I drafted it March 5th and signed it, but I didn't send it until I think the day of the deadline for the notice.
Okay.
Also, CC to you guys, to the chief building inspector, the city attorney, and the zoning and development officer of the city. So that's it. At this point, they're required to contact me within 30 days to discuss a plan for repairs to the structure. And wait, there's one other thing. The way our ordinance is written, since this is a non-contributing structure, it doesn't go through the entire process that a contributing structure goes through. So we have, first of all, the discussion with the owners, and then depending on if they're able to meet that timeline of repairs, which we will currently agree upon at that time. At the point at which they don't meet that, then it may go to a zoning violation. So, and then that essentially concludes the process. Goes into the zoning violation process, but it concludes the demolition by neglect process.
So you are the contact person between the city and the people that own the house?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, not entirely. For the demolition by neglect
That's what I'm talking about.
complaint, yes.
Yes, well, that's, yes. Mhm, that's what I'm talking about.
Right. There apparently is also the minimum housing issue as well. So two different issues.
Okay. Okay, so anything else on that?
No.
Okay.
A question, are we working as a non-contributing structure
Yes.
with plans for follow-up on that?
Well,
Or do we
as I just described, yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, so the individuals have to contact him in 30 days.
Right.
Which you have been contacted, if you received the email. We've been in constant contact with Patrick Ezel, and I don't think it's Ezel or Ezel.
So I was CC'd on communication regarding the minimum housing case, but I've not yet had a discussion regarding repairs to the structure.
And minimum housing is not our purview.
No. It ends up being a parallel
I understand
process.
it's parallel, I'm just making a distinction that is not up for our discussion.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, all right. Okay, so B is report on COAs issued.
May I make a comment, please? This is my cousin's home. First about the process, as you said, you wrote the letter. Well, the complaint was filed on 2/25. You wrote the letter on the 5th. It was not mailed until the 11th. I was contacted by Mr. Ezel on the 9th. I returned his phone call, left a voicemail, he called me back on the 10th. According to the certified letter, it was not sent until the 11th. It was received at our UPS mailbox on the 13th. I picked it up on the 15th. And so I knew nothing about, it's like, as you say, you're operating in parallel worlds. Your worlds need to come together. Because your letter, I completely understand where your letter is coming from. The way that Mr. Ezel, he painted a whole different picture. We met with him last October. He wanted to come into the house to check on it. And he said this house is not a house that is for demolition. I explained to him at that time, we are participating in the Rebuild NC program. Are y'all familiar with the Rebuild NC program?
Yes.
Okay, good. Which is a wonderful program that it's federally funded, and it's done by the state of North Carolina. And this program will help. There's 8 steps. We just today we were notified we're now in step 3. Step 4, we go to inspections, and where they come out and do the inspections, and it's an 8-step process with the goal of having a home that's properly built, repaired, so that my cousin can live in her home once again. So
she's not living there now?
No, we cannot live in the house.
Okay. All right, so have you notified, so the minimum housing issue is not our issue. So have you notified, have you talked with him about
No.
this process? Okay. So that would mean you would need to talk to Matt about it.
Right, but I have an issue with like a letter written on the 5th and it's not sent to the 11th. Then it says I have 30 days.
Yes.
My understanding, I have 30 days from the date of the receipt, not the date of the letter.
You can talk with him about
No,
that.
we'll make it.
Well, and the other issue is that we knew nothing about this meeting. Only reason I knew about this meeting is because a friend said, you might check the HPC schedule, and we were on it. So if y'all are discussing our property, which is private property, the owners need to be notified. So that is under y'all's purview. I mean, that's just common Southern courtesy to do. I mean, so...
I hear you.
Yeah, I mean, basically what you have is that you have neighbors. We had one neighbor. Our family has lived in a historic, since it was a historic district, over 300 years. We've lived in this house going on 50 years. And my cousin has had serious health issues since her husband passed away, and then her home of almost 50 years flooded. So, we're not millionaires. We're not like all these other people that can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. The comment that Mr. Ezel said, don't you have the money just to fix it? If we had the money to fix it, do you think that we would be renting another house? If we had the money to fix it, don't you think we would be fixing it? So, this board, it makes me wonder, for the minimum housing, how many people have lost their house through demolition by neglect or whatever, because the city of New Bern does not understand the Rebuild NC program. It's a wonderful program. It's putting hundreds of millions of dollars into eastern North Carolina to rebuild homes for people. We don't live in,
All right.
Yeah, New Bern is not, we don't want a sanitized version of New Bern. This is not Disneyland,
Okay, so thank you very much for your comments, and we'll move on from there. Okay? So item B is the report on COAs issued between 2/9 and 3/9. So we have those, okay? All right. Then we have the report on the COA extension issued since the prior regular meeting. And this is the one for the farmer's market.
That's correct.
And we talked about that last time. Okay. And then the item D is other items and updates. I have one item for that. Does anybody else have any other items for number D? Okay, so my item is where are we on the fence on Middle Street? You said you found the files, you're going to look at the files. Where are we any place to discuss that yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Seth and I went out and we actually measured. Well, first of all, I did review the COA that was provided to the owners at the time.
Okay.
It indicated very specific fence heights and post heights and gate heights. We went out to the site and we measured the fences and the posts and the gates to the ground where they are installed. We don't have the equipment to accurately measure away from the location, so that's all buried in a caveat. So in all of those cases, they did comply with what the COA required of them. So the fences were the correct height. Well, they were the height that was specified in the COA to the ground where the fence is actually located. Same with the posts and same with the gates. So that said, the caveat is that, of course, as we all know, the ground is not at the location where it was when they started. It is also not it is also not the same height as the sidewalk. So depending on where someone wants to interpret where the height of a fence is measured, and or whether or not the ground was properly or legally installed, those are all separate issues. But at least as far as the actual construction, we couldn't find a violation of that. We couldn't at least say, well, you didn't even build it the right height from where you raised the ground. We can't say that.
So what they did is they went and added dirt to the area.
Right.
And then they built on top of that dirt.
To the
And
correct.
they did that after they got the COA,
Right.
not before, they did it after.
Right.
So they did it with the intent of getting around what they were given permission to do. If I say that the building next door has a maximum height of X number of feet, where do we measure it from? We measure it from the sidewalk. If they decide to elevate a commercial building, which would be very difficult, but you could do it, and then fill underneath with dirt, they can now go 75 feet up into the air and say, I'm measuring it from the ground because I put ground under it.
Yes.
This is all a bunch of bunk. And if it isn't treated like bunk, then that means everybody can get around every guideline in this book. And that's really upsetting.
But on the other side, though, we have approved fences built on berms that we approved. So, I mean, the answer to this is ask that question when the COA comes. Are you going to build up the ground? And it's part of the COA.
Well, maybe for the future, but I'm
Yeah.
still looking at people who intentionally raise the level of the ground
Yeah.
so that they could alter what they were given permission to do. And there are a bunch of things on that property that they have done in violation of what they were given permission to do. And they have not been called to task on any of it. The railroad ties, which they're not allowed to use, are there. The landscape plan that they never submitted is there. So are we gonna give them permission and say, hey, it's okay because it's from the ground, I can't find a violation? You know,
Okay, so the landscape plan was never turned in, so.
they never submitted a landscape plan,
Okay,
never.
The railroad ties. Where are those
They
railroad
buried
ties?
the railroad ties.
Where are those railroad ties?
They put dirt over the top of them. They're
Oh.
right up against the patio.
The patio at the back?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, railroad ties. Okay, and they raised the base. So how do we want to write a letter to include those three things?
The grade, the landscaping plan,
Mm-hmm,
and buried railroad ties?
mm-hmm.
Well, at this point in time, they're buried, but they weren't when they installed them. They
And it
were
was what,
told to
3 years
take them
ago?
out, and they didn't.
And
That
they
about 3
buried,
years
They
ago?
just put plants over the top of them. You know, to me, that's a minor issue at this
Yeah,
point because
yeah.
they are buried.
yeah, you don't see them. So at least the two items.
So can we compose a letter about the grade? And if railroad ties are there, I mean, if we want to talk about that, we can. And that there's no landscape, there's never been a landscape plan. And have them come back and meet with us about those three things. Or they can meet with you and you can decide if they need to meet with us.
Right, and so it's, and in the end, the issued landscape plan becomes a judgment call on my part as to whether or not it's, comes to the level of a major work.
The problem with the landscaping, which, you know, if I look at it from across the street, it's attractive. I'm not arguing that. What I'm arguing is that they did things intentionally to get around our guidelines. Now, at this point in time, if we look at the landscaping independently of what they did to the grade, then we can't say anything negative about it. We can say, well, it's a minor, we approve it. No, we only approve it because it's on now elevated ground. The only way that they can, so far as I'm concerned, get back to the point where it's all approved is they have to remove everything and start again from grade.
With a approved COA of landscaping.
Well, they'd have to redo the landscaping because they'd have to remove all of that earth that they brought in, or they'd have to shrink the columns so that they fit with the sidewalk and shrink the gates and shrink the fence so that it fits with the sidewalk. Then the plantings could remain.
The bad thing about not addressing it like that is someone else can come in and say, well, you let so-and-so.
Right.
We always have that issue,
Yeah.
and that's why we are pursuing this.
Yeah.
Being late in the day, but we are pursuing it. So I think knowing them, I think probably they need to come back and meet with us at design review.
I think so too.
I think we probably need to meet face to face related to this. And then we can decide if it's a minor, if it's major, what it is that needs to happen.
I suppose there's a chance they may not do that.
There is a chance they may not do that, and then we'll go from there. But we'll start here. Okay, so that's the middle, that's what we're going to do about this fencing. Is there any other items under D? Seeing none. Any other comments anyone wants to make? Hearing none. I will call, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? We are adjourned.